Hello, and a warm welcome to the Farm Innovations webinar at Cereals 2020. Innovation is central to progress. If we don't change, we'll get the same results. The problem is that as farmers, we're bombarded with new ideas and products, and it's difficult to decide what to take up and where to go. Propelling farmers to achieve more in terms of production and efficiency is in everyone's interests. And our speakers today are all experts in seeing innovation from the farmer's point of view. I'm Mike Donovan, and I edit a Farmers' Brainwaves magazine called Practical Farm Ideas. In this session, you'll learn from scientists how they develop and test new farm systems and methods. They all work with groups of farmers and are keen to engage with more, as this means more information, more data to analyze. The farmers who have got engaged with them have benefited with a greater understanding and knowledge. So I encourage you to consider joining. Everyone benefits. I'm delighted to introduce to you Liz Bowles from the Soil Association, Daniel Kindred from ADAS, William McAlpine from Rothamsted Research, and Ben Rayner from Defra. Between us, you have agri-innovators from laboratory to the farmyard. Of course, farmers themselves are innovators, and these are the people I connect with in producing practical farm ideas. And so now to a few workshop ideas. First up is a harvest trailer, built so it can carry all the stuff, all the ancillary stuff that's needed from the combine. It's got the grain pusher, a huge 4-ton bucket, a smaller bucket, and the weigh bridge and everything, all on the one trailer. It's towed by the Scorpion telehandler, and we can look at the pusher here, which they built in the farm workshop, and you can see the way they've extended it. Those walls are 15 foot high, and if you've never seen a 4-ton grain bucket before, well, this one, home built, is for you to feast your eyes on. The next thing we do is to move to rabbits. Rabbits are an increasing problem across the country. Shooting is less accepted, and rabbit health improves. This is a home-built machine which buries rabbit netting for maximum effect. Again, farm designed and made largely from scrap parts. Its benefits are twofold, really. The normal way is with using a mini digger, and you'll do about 800 meters in a long day. This machine does 300 meters an hour, and it's all made from bits and pieces that are around the farmyard. The one thing that not only is it faster, but it lays the netting far more accurately than with a mini digger, because it's the trench is opened, the netting is put in, and then the trench is covered up again. Here, I'm wanting to show you now another grain dozer. You think I've got them on the brain, but this one has been very recently produced, and it's an innovation in farm machinery because it's home built out of high quality steel. And 10 years ago, I wrote a big feature on steels such as Swedish hard ox and these high tensile materials such as S355s. They were starting to be used, but I've never seen any workshop-built farm machinery using this stuff. It's very, very much lighter. We're talking about 480 kilograms as the weight of that machine, the weight of the pusher, as opposed to over a ton. So lighter machine means a better experience for the tractor, and also as you can see from the picture here, and I think this one here, that he has designed it so that the blade scoops the grain. And very, very important, this, that grain is not compressed while it's being pushed, but is lifted and floated into the thing to increase or to maintain the airspace between the grains. If you compress it, obviously there's less air, and you have problems with ventilation and drying. Now, Here's a project which I made in 1988, which was the start of the farming magazine, Practical Farm Ideas, a grass aerator. At the time, I hadn't seen one. I saw a little advertisement in an American magazine called Successful Farming, and I built this thing with the idea of breaking that compaction on the soil surface in order to get air down, because that was what it was. It was an aerator. What I found, in fact, was that as well as getting air, it allowed rainwater to percolate, and very, very much better rooting, increased yield, and something also which I think could be used on particularly upland areas to reduce flooding, because the less the runoff, the less the less the flooding. You know, the next one up is a grain cleaner. Now this has got an amazing return on capital. These people were suffering with stoppages on their grain, losing having about £3,000 taken off them each year because of low quality grain, low bushel weight. And so they decided to do something about it. And they built this grain cleaner for less than £1,000. And since they've done that, not only have they not had any stoppages, but they also use it to clean grain, which they use as home saved seed. Both, I mean, and the thing can be obviously made relatively easily. Two more things. This is a farm safety idea. Moving, it's a wheel weight mover, homemade again. The problem with weights is they're heavy and they're difficult to move. You leave them on the tractor when they don't need to be on the tractor, and that increases tire wear and so on. This machine, which has got a kind of which is made out of car wheels, in fact, but it's got a couple of bearings inside so that you can spin the wheel, spin the weight, and slide it onto the studs. Here's a second farm safety thing, which is the beacon on an ATV, and I'd say really it's kind of obvious. I now would like to hand the screen over to Liz Bowles, Associate Director, Farming and Land Use at the Soil Association and lead of the Soil Association's Innovative Farmers. She describes the impact of the work on their farmer field labs, from compost teas to improving utilisation of ADD and oilseed rape defoliation. Thank you very much for listening and enjoy the show.
Hello everybody, my name's Liz Bowles. I help to run the Innovative Farmers programme that's managed by the Soil Association, and since 2012 we've launched over 100 farmer-led field labs across the country and handed out over £300,000 of grants to those groups to help them to carry out their trials. And the thing I really want to say about the Innovative Farmers programme is that it puts farmers in the driving seat of on-farm research. That's, for me, the really important feature of the programme. So just to let you know who's involved in running the programme, we work with LEAF, with Innovation for Agriculture, with the Organic Research Centre and Waitrose Duchy Originals. And we're funded primarily by the Prince of Wales's charitable fund, but also by AHDB over the last 2 or 3 years. And you can see at the bottom of the screen the website for the Innovative Farmers programme. And I'd like to let you know that you can become a network member for free. It's completely free to join. And once you've logged in, you can access all the reports from all those field labs, and you can also sign up to get the newsletter, which means that you can know what groups are reporting when and can join those webinars. I'd also like to say that despite the COVID restrictions, all but one of our field labs is still carrying on. So we have more or less a normal programme of events over the coming months, albeit we've moved on to online platforms, although we are looking at how we can restart more physical events when permitted. So how does the programme work? It works essentially with farmers or indeed other people within the supply chains coming to us with ideas. They've got ideas about things that they want to test on farm, things that are keeping them awake at night, and it's very much responding to those challenges that farmers face every day and that sometimes perhaps aren't being addressed so much by the research community at the moment. So farmers come with ideas. We then match the farmers with a researcher and a group coordinator. Really important that we have a researcher who is interested in the topic the farmers want to be looking at, and a coordinator who's really there to keep the thing moving. And I should say that generally we have about between 5 and 10 farmers who are testing the ideas on their farms. But alongside them, there'll be a whole group of farmers who are watching what they're finding out and who get involved in the webinars, the events as the trial progresses. So once the farmers have decided what they want to test, what their research question is, they then set about thinking about how they're going to carry out the trial and what they need to collect data on and what they need to monitor. And it's really important that for even though it's on farm, we help to design a trial that's as robust as possible whilst being possible to do on farm. And that does involve having controls. And the research fund is there to support the group to carry out their trials, whether that be to fund the analysis of samples, to pay for monitoring. We even sometimes pay for small bits of kit, as well as seeds and fertilizer where those are needed and are different to normal farming practice. And probably most importantly, once the trial is concluded, the group will analyse their findings and we'll then help to share what they found out across our network and more broadly across the whole of the farming community. So that's how the programme works. We carry out evaluations to make sure that we're hitting the mark with the programme. And I think the important thing from this slide to say is that nearly everybody, in fact, overwhelming majority of people who've been involved with the programme over the last 7 years would recommend it to other farmers. And in reality, there's really nothing to lose through getting involved because you never know what other farmers have been testing and what you might be able to learn. So what I want to do now, because I know it's really what I find brings the field lab program to life, is just talking about some of the field labs. So I've chosen 2, and the first one I'm going to just very briefly talk through is the field lab that's been going now since 2018, exploring alternative ways of controlling cabbage stem flea beetle in oilseed rape. We've got 5 farmers who've been doing this, and we're doing this with ADAS as our researchers. And essentially, they've been looking at the impact of defoliation of oilseed rape in the autumn and winter to see what impact that has on the flea beetle larvae and subsequent crop damage and yield loss. So the first year, they defoliated it either through grazing or through topping, and possibly we defoliated a bit, possibly too late, because although the defoliation did definitely reduce the larval counts in the spring, it also had a negative impact on yields. So we're doing it again, and this time we are defoliating earlier, probably a month to 6 weeks earlier than last year. So that's happened, and the larva numbers have been collected post the defoliation. As you can see, the significant reduction in larval numbers, up to 76%, where the crop has been grazed by livestock, slightly lower where it's been topped. But now, of course, we're waiting to see what impact this will have on harvest yields compared to the control areas which haven't been defoliated in any way. And again, you can see all the results so far on the Innovative Farmers website. The second field lab I want to just very briefly touch on is the one that's been running now since 2017 over in the east of England, looking at really 2 things. One was about how to reduce the nitrogen losses from spreading of anaerobic digestate on crops. And also this year, this group is now looking at as much the impact on soil microbiology of applying anaerobic digestate to crops. And this has been really very important because anaerobic digestate use is becoming far more common, but the research into its impact on crops and on soil less well known. So again, this one is carrying on through the COVID restrictions, and as we go into the autumn, we'll have results from this field lab into the impacts on the microbiota within the soils from the application of anaerobic digestate. And Lydia Smith from NIAB is the researcher on this field lab, along with Agritech East being the group coordinator. And again, if you want to find out more about this field lab, you can log on to the Innovative Farmers website to find out how this field lab is getting on. So thank you for listening. And now I'd like to hand on to Dan, who's going to talk about the yield enhancement network that ADAS runs. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, so I'm Daniel Kindred from ADAS. I'm head of agronomics at ADAS. We have been working with farmers doing field on-farm experiments and sharing data for the last 10 years, and are really passionate about the transformative potential for farmer-centric working like this to transform both agronomy but also the science of agronomy. Okay, so we've been and we call this kind of this approach that we've been taking to farm-centric knowledge generation, agronomics. And there's really two strands to this. So we started in 2012 with the yield enhancement networks that were really started out trying to identify and support arable innovators, where we share ideas, measures, data and insights. That's grown from just being on cereal crops to now covering over 7 different networks and crops, working with over 500 farms, and we've now got really detailed benchmarking data on over 1,000 crops. And that data now is what we really see, that ability for farmers to share their data and see how they compare to their peers for metrics that matter is really where we see the real power and value of what we're doing in this now. Alongside the yield enhancement networks, we've also run what we call line trials, and looking at developing on-farm testing. So we had a project in 2013 with Innovate UK support, which helped us develop the protocol software and importantly the statistics to run on-farm trials using yield mapping and precision farming technologies to be able to get results from those trials which are comparable to what we would get from conventional plot experiments. So we can get confidence limits and we can see what we can compare the errors of the means that we're and the differences that we're seeing. We've now turned that into a commercial service, and since 2013 we've conducted around 700 line trials, or around 150, 200 per year. We have a total of over 160 farmers across a whole range of crops, including the real results, so network of 50 farmers that with BASF, and also with innovative farmers field labs like Liz mentioned. In 2017, we brought these two things together in what we called in a project with EIP Agri funding. It's called Yen yield testing, where this allowed us to test the farmers' ideas and results that are coming out of the Yen with farmers from the Yen in these on-farm experiments in what we call farmer innovation groups. And I'll talk a bit more about those. We're also now launching what we call Yen Nutrition, which is a new initiative for 2020, which we just launched. And we see this as kind of the giving us the potential to really expand the kind of benchmarking that we're doing from the Yen. The Yen has tended to be very, very detailed benchmarking data on 1, maybe 2 fields per firm per year. With Yen Nutrition, we're looking to provide a service where farmers can benchmark all of their fields and for something of real value. So with grain nutrient analysis, so we're seeing that the nutrient content of the grain can give a really useful indicator of the nutrient status of your fields, and that's something which has come out of the Yen and this work that we've been doing here. So that's something that you can get involved in from this year that we're incredibly excited about. Okay, so I think the real learning that we've seen from the Yen, or our real realization, has been that the approach that we're taking here, we can apply to any question or any issue or any innovation network. Okay, and we see that there's kind of 4 pillars of this kind of agronomics approach that are important to make this work and to bring it all together. The first is to have a shared concept, so that the farmers and the industry and researchers involved are kind of thinking about the question in the same way, about the issue. We have a shared understanding of what's driving the issue. That defines the metrics that we should be measuring, or the data that we should be sharing. And we can just by comparing data and measures across a group of interested people, we can learn a lot from them. Those measures can then help identify the ideas and issues to test, or potential solutions that we should be, potential new systems that we can think how we could do things differently, what decisions could we make differently. They can come both from the concepts or from the data that we've already collected and shared. Once we've got those ideas, we then need to test them, and that's what we can do together in a joined up way with coordinated testing across groups of farmers. It gives us a real power to be able to test any decision or any system or any innovation that we might face as farmers. So we see real potential in this way. I can't think of problems or issues that we couldn't tackle with this approach. So the Yen yield testing project, supported by EIP Agri, gave us our first chance to really pull this together. So pulling together the kind of Yen approach with the agronomics approach. In that, we supported 5 farmer innovation groups, or FIGs, across kind of about 48 trials, and each of those groups, farmers coming together from the Yen, interested in different areas, and ideas that either came from individual farmers or came from the analysis of the data that we collected from the Yen. You can read all about these on the Yen website. This project is just finished and just being reported, and there are full reports on the Yen website. Some of the results we've seen, so there was a FIG looking at amino acids as biostimulants, and across the 9 trials we saw there, then we didn't see any significant effects from those. Looking at spring potash, and spring potash even on high K soils, we were sometimes seeing support high yields, but there's more work needed there to understand those effects. A group of farmers that took cross drilling and oilseed rate and showed the value of more uniform plant spacing. We developed a new concept called crop momentum, which came out of the Yen about yield enhancement across a large number of farmers. But the results from that are not yet proven. We need to think again about how we ask the question in that. And then finally we had a deeper rooting FIG, looking at the effects of cultivation and manure applications. And in that we saw some really interesting effects on deep burrowing earthworms. And that's continuing now as an innovative farmers field lab. Okay, so as I said, there's full reports from all of those on the YEN website. So just to summarise some of the learnings that we've seen from kind of on-farm trials over the last decade. As I said, farmers can test ideas, decisions and systems on the farm, but it's really important to frame the question well. Using precision farming technology, so yield mapping, we can get quantitative results, but we need to be careful because the in-field spatial variation that we see in any field is normally greater than the effect of any treatment that we want to apply. So it's really important there therefore that we use rigor, because it's very easy to come to false conclusions. If you just compare any two areas of any two fields or just two fields, they will always be different. And so you need to be sure as you can be that that difference is due to the treatment or the treatment that you're looking at, rather than just inherent variation. So considering the field suitability is important, and replication can be very beneficial. And we had this agronomics analysis that can give the statistical confidence to results from where we have yield map data or satellite data. And it's much better to test trials and ideas together as a group than it is alone. Biofigs or field labs are basically the same thing with innovative farmers, involving advisors, industry and scientists. Proving that something doesn't work, or proving the limits of how much something works, so it's not a greater effect than maybe 0.3 tons a hectare, is also a useful and valid approach. We don't always have to think that finding a significant effect is what we're after. And there are real opportunities for on-farm data sharing, testings and learnings to enhance both farming and scientific progress. One important thing of this is that this approach enables us to understand soil differences in a way which is just not possible with conventional research. But we need funding mechanisms to support farm innovation and tests, to support the kind of ideas that are coming from farmers and things that farmers want to test, rather than necessarily just the things where there's likely to be commercial funding available. Okay, so thank you very much, and I'll pass on to Will McAlpine from Rothamsted.
Thanks very much, Dan. So I'm here to talk about Farm-In, which is an initiative supported by the AHDB and promoted by Rothamsted Research. And ours is a much younger initiative that was only launched in February 2019. But we really wanted to make our researchers available to help support farmers test out their ideas. So we're the longest running agricultural institute in the world and do all sorts of research from the gene to the landscape level, soils, crops, pests and diseases, all sorts of things that are highly relevant to the sector, but they're often driven by our hypotheses and our ideas. And we really value that farmers are great innovators and they continually strive for better ways of doing things. And when it comes to their own land, they really have unrivaled knowledge and expertise about their own farms. But we think that we can help a lot like innovative farmers and the figs that Dan mentioned by pairing our expertise with the farm expertise and helping farmers support their innovation. And also particularly recognising in this climate that with the changes in support mechanisms and trade arrangements, it's going to be really important for farmers to innovate going forward, and we want to help support that. So there's links at the bottom of this slide here if you'd like to get in touch with us about farming. So, like I said, it's run at Rothamsted. We've got lots of expertise that potentially we could share, and the piece that we can do is help ensure that it's designed in a way that it can rigorously test out the farmer idea and it's capable of kind of answering the question. So a farmer-derived idea will be paired with one of our expert scientists that can provide help to do this. The model that we work to is to do this on farm, so that it can be done in partnership with the farmer, and also that the ideas are shared throughout the industry. And we've got this slight difference with the other projects. Innovative Farmers and FIGs do amazing work at working in groups, and ours is more of a one-to-one relationship. So we hope that that will kind of complement it if that's an appropriate approach, and not kind of compete with the other initiatives. So the process, an application will be reviewed by an internal inside Rothamsted scientific board, and then an external steering group to check that the idea is worth the investment and kind of valid. And then one of our experts will be paired to that project, and money will be available to de-risk testing that idea to the farmer. And that's one of the reasons why we work one-to-one, because our limited funds will be spread quite thinly if we work across a wider group, but up to £3,000 can be available per project to help de-risk testing this innovation. So that could cover things like yield loss, or having to have a control in there to make it scientifically viable. So that's the model that we're working to. And like I said, we just started in February 2019, and some of our autumn sown projects were impacted by the dreadful weather we had in the autumn, but we have had some successes and have got some in the ground. And this is a cross drilling in wheat experiment. Between the blue lines, you can just about see the two directions of drilling there, to look at the impact of this potentially on crop yield. And this is being tested on David Passmore's farm in Oxfordshire. So we're excited to see the results from that this year. We've also got in Cambridgeshire in March a really interesting trial to test the potential of mixtures in Group 4 winter wheats to reduce fungicide inputs and many other of the benefits there. And another really interesting arable project that we've got is looking about the placement of starter fertilizers in a zero tillage system. So you can see a liquid fertilizer applicator that's been fitted on the back of a cross slot drill there, and the liquid fertilizer or other products can be added where it's drilled, and so we're investigating if that can be have influence on the establishment phase. So here are some of the treatments that we're looking at, and this has been done in collaboration with Agria, who's helped with some of the agronomy and some of the products, and we're keen to make our treatments here possible that they can be replicated on other farms, and all of our projects will have the knowledge shared, and whilst they will be done mainly on one farm, we want to make the learnings available so that all farmers can benefit potentially. And here's our practical in-field trial design. So you can see that it fits with normal systems, but allows us to incorporate our kind of statistical design that hopefully will be capable of coming up with the answers that we need. So just to sum up, farming, like the other projects, really aims to help de-risk testing new innovative ideas, and we really want those ideas from farmers and really value those ideas and that dialogue. We really can add value to that, testing those ideas by making sure that they're tested with rigor and will be tested in a scientifically meaningful way, but also on a practical field scale. So do get in touch if you've got ideas that you'd like to test, or also just have to start a dialogue about some of the research that we're doing. Thanks very much, and I'll hand over now to Ben Rayner from Defra to hear about Defra's exciting plans for the future.
Many thanks, Will. And it's been really interesting to hear more about the work that you and Liz and Daniel are doing in terms of driving this farmer-led innovation. So yes, as Will said, my name is Ben Rayner. I work in the food chain innovation team in Defra, and we've been working on a package of measures which will be delivered as part of the post-Common Agricultural Policy agricultural landscape to drive investment in R&D and to drive the delivery of farmer-led R&D. So the scheme's called the Innovation R&D Package. But before I get into the detail of the package itself, I thought it would be useful just to spend a little bit of time talking about why we're doing this. You know, what's the problem we're trying to solve here. So if I move on to the first slide, so you can see there's a couple of graphs here, or a graph and a chart. Look at the bottom graph, we can see that in terms of total factor productivity, the UK agricultural sector's productivity, which is a thick line at the bottom of the graph, hasn't kept pace with some of our major international competitors. Then if you look at the chart at the top left, you can see that even within the UK, when looking at gross value added, you can see that it doesn't compare too well with some of the other sectors. Now, clearly there's variation within the farming sectors in terms of total factor productivity, gross value added, and there will be different causes and solutions depending on the sector. But I think it's one thing that it is true to say is that over the long term, investment in agricultural R&D is the best driver for productivity. And I think both industry and government have recognised this, that by investing in R&D, which encourages innovation, which not only increases productivity but also delivers public good benefits, we can sort of really make an impact on and improve those figures. However, it's not just about investing in R&D. We've worked with the sector, we've spoken to the sector, and we've identified some common barriers to productivity, and we have developed a suite of measures which innovation sits in, which have been developed with the aim of not only increasing productivity, but increasing sustainability and increasing resilience in the sector. Each piece of the jigsaw addresses a specific barrier, but they all work together to enable those wholesale changes to the industry, which the sector knows we need to make. So I'll just quickly run through them. If you look on the top left, the red box that's got investment, this is about grants for farmers to invest in equipment which will support this sustainable productivity increases. If you look below that, there's the blue box, that's around structural changes. So that's around putting in place measures which will give farmers greater flexibility in their contractual relationships with their landlords and also within their supply chains. We move across to capability and skills. So this is looking at ways that we can increase business performance in agriculture, increase skills, increase farmer-to-farmer learning, and increase knowledge exchange. And then finally, if you move up to the top, you can see that this is titled Supporting R&D, and this is where the Innovation R&D package sits. So if we look at that piece of the jigsaw in a little bit more detail, I mentioned earlier that investment in R&D is the best long-term driver of productivity, but it's not just about investing more, it's also about investing better. So making sure that we are directing investment, targeted investment in translational R&D. So this is R&D which addresses both immediate and future challenges to the food sector, R&D which is farm or farmer-centric, so it's bringing together researchers, bringing together the agricultural communities and getting them to work together to develop new agricultural technologies and practices. And then it's about R&D which can be used to demonstrate these new technologies and then drive adoption. So if we go into a bit more detail around what the package looks like. So to enable that to happen, we've worked with industry, farmers, growers, researchers to develop the innovation R&D package. So it's one innovation framework, 3 strands with different points of entry. Each point of entry, each strand addressing a particular need. And 1 at the top, accelerating adoption. This is about small scale, short-term, farmer-led research projects. So we're working to invest in R&D which de-risks investment in the testing, trialing and scoping of new ideas, and bringing, importantly, bringing farmers together to invest in the demonstration of novel ideas and making sure they have that on-farm application. So if we move counterclockwise to strand 2, we have industry-led syndicates. So these are compared to the smaller farmer-led projects of the accelerator and adoption strand, these are longer-term, larger-scale projects looking at tactical R&D to address problems facing the sector today, stimulating investment in R&D to address those problems and bringing agribusinesses together to identify those problems and then engage with researchers to find the solutions to those problems. And then finally, we have strand 3, which is called the strategic themed R&D strand. So this is about addressing those more strategic challenges, looking at both incremental and transformational improvements, while bringing agri-food businesses and researchers together to work collaboratively on R&D, which is focused on addressing those long-term strategic issues facing the food sector. So while the syndicates can be described as a bit more tactical, focusing on the issues facing the sector today, tomorrow, next year, the strategic theme strand is more looking at the issues which may be facing this sector in the next 10, 20 or 30 years time. To finish, so we have just to recap, so the innovation R&D package is one of a number of measures we're developing to drive productivity, but drive it in a way that it also delivers environmental benefits, so helping deliver net zero targets, and also increases the resilience within the sector. We're looking to build on previous and current investments. So we've heard about innovative farmers, we've heard about the yield enhancement network, and we've also heard about farming. So it's certainly learning from those, building on those, but then also those schemes such as the industrial strategy, challenge fund, transforming food production program, and making sure that we can learn those lessons and build on that work with targeted investment, which will improve that connectivity between researchers and the end users, so the farmers and agribusinesses, put industry in the driving seat and making sure we're solving those real world problems. It's about investing in R&D that will improve coordination across the innovation pipeline, being strategic and linking that research and putting it into practice. And then it's about enhancing the rate of adoption of those new technologies, working with farmers to enable them to share the financial risk of carrying out trials, and then making sure that they are at the centre of what we do. So I've talked a lot and we've heard a lot today about a collaborative approach. So we're very much looking for a collaborative approach in terms of the delivery, but we've also taken a collaborative approach in terms of how we've designed the scheme. We've taken very much aim for a co-design approach, working with industry, engaging with sectors and researchers from sort of before Health and Harmony. We'll continue to do that as we move towards the scheme's launch in 2022. Thank you, and I will pass you over to Mike now.
Hello. Hello. Thank you very much for your for your presentations, which well, I found very interesting, and it all brings together the business of farm innovation and the various strands which we are working with. I'd like to really sort of close the session with some questions. I'm sure that we've got questions that we can ask each other, and I mean, maybe would somebody like to start with a question?
Yeah, I will, Mike. I've been sitting listening to all of us sort of talking about our own, how we're thinking about farmer-led research, and it did occur to me that in the future, it's a question for all of us really, do you think we're going to have to think about how we design trials in the future to include thinking about the impact of what we're testing in terms of climate change, biodiversity and soils, as well as looking at impact on profitability for farmers? What do you think?
Well, what you're asking me?
No, I'm asking all of us. I'm asking everybody.
Well, I mean, I would certainly agree. One of the things that I find quite interesting is that a lot of the trials seem to be done in what you might term sort of artificial circumstances. You know, I mean, particularly as far as grass is concerned, but also I think cereals as well. That's to say, the seed trials are done in perfect conditions, and the farms I visit on the whole don't have perfect conditions.
Mm. Yeah,
I would say, Liz, that you're absolutely right, and that there's a real opportunity here to do that. I mean, that's what we do with things like the yen, where we're comparing data that we can calculate a whole range of metrics from those, and we can get the measurements on the important metrics around sustainability or GHG intensities. We get the right data, we can provide those indicators and metrics as a default, and that's something that we could do across the board. And I think, to me, that the real it's incredibly important that we do that consistently between us, and there's a real benefit from doing that, and doing that in a collaborative and joined up way, so that we can see how different things are comparing. If we all do it in silos, then you're going to end up with numbers that don't really mean anything to anybody.
Yeah.
No, that's a very fair point, actually. Yeah, I mean, for me, certainly as we go forward with the Innovative Farmers Programme, we're looking at adding in those kind of lenses to how we measure results at field labs. I think it would be a brilliant idea to have a consistent set of metrics that, you know, are used consistently, because at the moment we don't even have those in terms of measuring carbon footprint on farms. And I'm pleased to see that there is some work now being done to do that comparison in a consistent fashion across the leading carbon footprinting tools. And yeah, certainly, so I'd be really up for doing that in a consistent way.
I think one constraint that we've got at the moment is the kind of short-term funding cycles, and some of the big relevant challenges that concern soil health or soil organic carbon and things that can really drive getting to net zero are kind of longer term. So they may not need to be intensively managed, but maybe if the remit is a one year or 18-month project, you can't see the kind of longer changes. So hopefully, yeah, going forward, more relaxation and kind of thinking about the longer term will be useful.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with that, Will, and what others have said as well. And I think when we've engaged with the industry, the constant message we've been getting is that importance of that longer term approach to investing in our R&D, and certainly, you know, not only in terms of the sort of project lengths, so the sort of strands 2 and strands 3, we're looking, you know, potentially up to 4 years for a project. About that continuing funding over a period of time. So I think there's been a bit of a fragmented approach to funding R&D and agriculture up to now. We've had some real good investments through the Agrotech strategy and transforming food production. But what we're looking to do is give this longer term forward look of money which will be available to invest in R&D, and that would enable us to take that longer term approach, because, you know, farming, there's going to be some fundamental changes to farming. Probably quite often we don't know what they'll be, we just know there will be changes, and what we're trying to do is put in place a suite of measures which will enable us to sort of start thinking about those today and addressing those problems in future years.
Okay.
Yes. Could I ask the four of you, are there too many organizations involved in the whole business of sort of innovation, and would it be possible perhaps for people to get together a bit more? I mean, it's wonderful to see this this group of 4, including me, but I'm really an outsider. But 4 people who are very much involved. And do you talk together a lot? Do you meet? Do you share stuff, or do you come on on a thing like this only?
I think we do.
Yeah,
don't we?
Yeah,
go on, Ben.
I'll make a start. I mean, certainly, there's a lot of great work going on, and you're certainly right in terms of, you know, there are lots of schemes. But I think when we're designing our package, you know, we're looking to remove some of that complexity, to simplify the offer, but we're not looking to crowd out the good work that's going on already. So certainly it's about plugging the gaps and making sure that the work that we've heard about today continues, and we can always use our package, our funding to support that work. But we certainly do work together. I mean, I recognise all those faces. And I've sat in rooms and in workshops with them a number of times, and the input that they've given us into the design of the scheme has been absolutely invaluable, especially around that sort of farmer-led angle, and how we make sure that is really targeted and really effective and really relevant for sort of what's facing the sector, not only today but in future years.
I think I'd like to come in on that. I mean, absolutely. The Innovative Farms Programme, William sits on the steering group, and we work closely with ADAS on field lab delivery. I think the real challenge is to ensure that going forward, farmer-led research becomes an integral part of the total support programme for farmers going forward, because at the moment it's very much relying on organisations to seize that initiative, which is fine, but as everybody is increasingly saying, this farmer-led element needs to be properly considered. And if you think that at the moment, I think it's less than 1% of publicly funded agricultural research money is going into this area. It's remarkably low out of the total amount of money that goes into agricultural research. And certainly I'd encourage Ben to really see how that budget can be better augmented in future, because what this farmer-led research does is really resonate with farmers, and it shortens that chain from research to farmers carrying out practice change. And I think that's one of we haven't mentioned it before, but that is the real sort of diamond in farmer-led research, that farmers can see the impact for themselves. They don't have to wait for years for the research to be, you know, the reports to be gone through all the normal hoops and then to be translated for them into something they can understand. It's much quicker, much more immediate.
Yes. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I think the approach we've taken with the YEN and with Agronomics is to be as open and as collaborative as possible. I think we should also mention here the FLIN, the Farmer-Led Innovation Network, that we're all part of. I think that's a group of people which is set up a year or two ago, specifically to kind of bring all the organisations who are kind of working in this area together to try and well, make sure that we are, you know, singing from the same hymn sheet. But I think the key thing is going forward with the kind of the funding that Ben's talking about, is that we have incentives to collaborate rather than incentives to compete, because it is, you know, even universities act as, you know, in a commercial way, and we have to recognise that. So there needs to be, we need to get over this thing of the first inkling to being competing rather than collaborating, because we're going to get much further by collaborating.
Yeah.
Just to quickly add, you know, and I think it's not only about doing the research, it's that driving that knowledge exchange is really, really important. And you know, we everybody sort of appreciates that. And I think that the more we involve farmers in the research, the more likely there is to be that knowledge exchange. You know, sort of in terms of adoption, will farmers speak to farmers, and the more farmers we can get involved and excited about innovation, the more likely they are going to sort of spread the word to their colleagues and their neighbours.
Yeah, I'd agree that peer-to-peer kind of learning piece is really, really powerful, and something that I think we all recognise.
Well, maybe one final question to you all. Could you tell me which organisation or which type of organisation? I mean, you might say young farmers clubs, or you might say five-star hotels or something like that. Which organisation do you think is absolutely key to getting into the minds of your Mr. Average Farmer, as it were, who obviously we all are really needing to involve.
I don't think there's any one, because farmers all communicate in different ways. I have to say, the Innovative Farmers Programme, we're making more and more use of short films and publicising them on social media. That's quite good. I do agree, young farmers, there's got to be a place to go. Agricultural colleges, we should use those more too, because you know those students are there for 3 years, and certainly they hopefully will have open minds to new ideas. I think it's actually about just, there's never been an easier time to disseminate information using social media. So, you know, basically it behoves us to use all those channels.
Yeah.
I think we should also the crucial importance of the advisors, you know, and agronomists, and that whole kind of support industry which is out there, which can play a really crucial role in driving that kind of farmer.
Have you got any?
I was going to say the key is really understanding who farmers listen to, who are their trusted sources of information, and you know, and there were some agronomists, farmers, friends and family, bank managers. You know, there's a whole range of people who they listen to, and it may differ between the age of the farmer and the type of the farmer. So I think what we need to do as Defra and working with you guys to do that is really understand how we have targeted engagement and how we sort of giving the right message through the right source to the different types of farmers.
And for me, I think it's really important to not have the pressure on an individual to actually come up with an innovative idea. If they do today, and through Flynn and through the new Defra approaches, hopefully we've convinced people that there is support available if they'd like to test something out. But also, I think having a more central knowledge exchange hub is going to be really important. So you could get inspiration what others have done, and maybe building on those initial thoughts is going to be really important as well. But having more centralisation could be good going forward.
Well, thank you very much. I think it's probably the witching hour's arrived, and it's wrapping up time. But before I sort of close, anyway, I'd really like to congratulate the Cereals 2020 people, and Katrina and Ali and so on, because I mean they have struggled through a minefield of electronics and buttons of one sort and another, and it's amazing that we made it. But thank you all very, very much, and let's hope at some stage we will all see each other in the flesh. I mean, that will be absolutely wonderful. But thank you very much again. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.